Thank you, Nadia, and good morning to everyone here. Um, like Nadia said, thanks for everyone for getting on today's webinar to talk about VMware, Workspace Anywhere. Now we're living in the new normal, and companies are adapting, and that's what life is about. So, with that in mind, AspireNXT is a a digital transformation and workplace transformation focused organization with over 12 years of experience and a presence in over 8 countries globally, right? With more than 500 customers worldwide and 1,000 projects delivered, we aim to bring digital solutions to customers in the most cost-effective and most transformative way possible, right? So moving on, Aspirenex has been recognized as a VMware Master Services Competency Partner in the digital workspace realm. This is one of the highest partnerships that you can have when you are partnered with VMware, and we continue to improve our skill sets along this competency, making sure that we are at the top of the game and making sure that customers get the best of the best when they work with Aspirenex. So moving forward, I would like to introduce Ankshit. Ankshit is going to be taking everyone through today about VMware and Anywhere Workspace, and give a high level about what's available to customers, what's available um, to organizations, what's available from a governance perspective, and from an overall transformation perspective. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ankshit. Over to you, Ankshit.
Thanks, Anirudh. Hi, all. Would welcome you on board for this session that you're all going to attend regarding what we're going to let you know about Workspace ONE anywhere, what it contains, what are the merits, how exactly this tool will function, the administrators will be benefited from, what difference will it going to make. So, yeah, a little bit brief of this product so that you'll all be able to understand how it competes. A little about the competency of how other MDMs function and what difference Workspace ONE anywhere makes when you make use of it, or understand how the tunnel, the remote support, Workspace ONE Assist applications, other tools that are available with VMware that it actually allows the administrators to make use of, and what exactly will it do when we're going to make use of. Next slide. All right. Here's just a diagram of how exactly things will gonna work, what infrastructure the device services server, the console server, the database that's gonna be of SQL, how exactly it contacts each other, what exactly is gonna happen in UEM. I would say it is exactly segregated in four parts: uh, unified endpoint management, VMware Horizon Cloud, and other than that, we have Workspace on Access and Workspace on Intelligence. So the first that I'm going to discuss about is UEM. That's going to be Unified Endpoint Management. That exactly allows an admin to manage the endpoints. When I say endpoint, it's going to be iOS, Androids, Mac OS. There's going to be multiple platforms that you're going to manage within your environment, which actually UEM helps you to manage being an administrator. Like the next one. So how exactly these changes, these things would be fragmented, how exactly we make use of this product, what options we have available for apps, how we push them, APPX bundle. There are going to be different types of applications that we can actually render. If an admin would like to make use of it, the functions that are available, the I also would say that it'll just not be about the endpoints, but it'll also be able to manage the environment of how exactly should it function, be it the device services server, the other functions that we have available, will gonna be unified access gateway, secure email gateway, and a few more feature that it renders, wherein you do not have to make use of Office 365, or I would say not Office 365, but the Exchange online services. But VMware has its own service that it provides that's going to be secure email gateway. It also has the front end and the back end of how exactly it functions, reaching out to the console, how exactly it functions between them, what exactly is going to happen when it functions, or what difference will it make. So there are number of challenges there are a number of issues that sometime that we were able to identify how exactly it functions when you make use of it. What difference will it make when you actually allow the UAG to function? Unified Access Gateway. Yep, we can move to the next one. So when we talk about this unified access gateway, it actually allows users to have reverse web proxy, I would say. Other than that, the VMware tunnel that allows the traffic to flow in a direction we would allow to. Whitelist the applications. We also can block it. We also can blacklist it so that the URL will not function. The server traffic rules, the device traffic rules that we can set up in tunnel proxy, the content that we're going to allow the users, being an admin, to make use of will also be monitored. What repositories we can create so that the user who is accessing it would be able to see that what's going to happen while you actually make use of things online, or whatever data that an admin should allow would be available for users, but it would all be monitored. We also have options of how exactly this Workspace ONE Horizon functions. I would say it's about virtualization of desktop and applications, wherein every application that you're going to access, or the desktop that you're going to monitor would just be virtual. You'll be able to see the difference between how exactly it functions. It would just be the same experience of how exactly I would say, a physical desktop is, but there are differences. The kind of, the speed, the sprint that it shows, it actually allows us to make use of it, and many more. The technologies here we have is about not just VMware Workspace ONE UEM, Carbon Black, SaaS, NSX, other technologies that are also indulging. VMware is growing not just by the customers, but also adding more to more products of understanding so that everything that we're going to access will have something to offer. What exactly we're going to get while we actually get the, I would say, the endpoint solutions. Other than that, the intelligence, I would say, it has the automation part wherein every task would run once in 45, no, not 45, but 24 hours. Once we edit it, we allow the users to make use of it. They also can automate tasks. That means they'll also be able to allow a particular group or anything to sync once in 24 hours, or a task that we would like to run once in 24 hours would also be accomplished, so that the users would actually be allowed to make use of it. And yeah, that'll be open. We also have information about security and compliance, wherein the security part would be taken care of, and the compliance, wherein the endpoints that's going to be a part of it would actually be able to see that, yes, this is the compliance of a particular device that we are going to access. Compliance would actually be taking precedence over policies that are going to be enforced on devices. Let's suppose we have an endpoint. It could be iOS. Being an example, taking an example of iOS, if I consider iOS, the compliance policy that we are going to deploy on an iOS device would be an 8-digit passcode. If we are going to deploy an 8-digit passcode, and once UEM checks with a device if it has 8-digit passcode, if it throws an error, the compliance status just reports the same. Because the compliance, if we set up a compliance policy for a specific device and we push it over the device, it would just be checking with the device. It does not get enforced like configuration policies. So compliance would just check the status of how exactly this policy is working. If this policy allows or is in place or is following the compliance requirements that we have set up. If it doesn't follow the compliance requirements, it actually gets set up and it doesn't allow the users to make use of it or to make use of the resources of the organization that admin should allow. Until those devices would be in the compliance matrix, they'll not be allowed to access the resources or will not allow the users to make use of that device. Some use cases about how exactly this functions of the configuration, if I would say, how exactly we push it on devices, how exactly it reaches the devices. So there's a in case of iOS, the thing that functions in between is APNS. I would say Apple Push Notification Services. Every UEM console that you're gonna access will have an active Apple Push Notification Services for all Apple devices, not just for iOS but macOS as well. Even if you're gonna use iPadOS, so it's all gonna be same. So this APNS allows to communicate with a device. Without this device communication, the enrollment will not happen. How exactly the iOS or any other platform gets enrolled into UEM that allows the experience to a user, or I would say a standard user, who's going to use this device and will understand how exactly this device would go through the configuration to get enrolled, considering the ID of the user, how exactly this enrollment process functions, what's the role of, I would say, the PRT, how exactly will it gonna be working on devices that you're gonna access, how exactly will it gonna be working on devices that will be a part. So there will be a lot more of how exactly these devices would actually require time for and get enrolled into Workspace ONE UEM to show what exactly and how exactly it functions. I would say a success stories would be about what platforms what companies have been enrolled, BMW, Starbucks. There are a lot more organizations who are getting indulged. Recently, we also have onboarded Infosys and many more platforms. We get to know that yes, this is how exactly this solution would be required, how exactly their intelligence will help us benefit them, what exactly is the role of access when it actually is about Okta, what authentication is available with users, how exactly will they be able to log in once they see the first experience of logging into Workspace ONE or a private space that they'll actually be able to divide their Android devices in, or I would say dividing them or segregating them in a way that their personal space and the workspace would just be segregated so that they'll be able to access them when required. And yeah, this is how exactly an Android enterprise will function and will allow users so that most of them who are going to access this or who are going to make use of this UEM solution will help them understand that yes, this actually has a priority for users as well and will allow them to make use of it in a way that it will not hinder them while they're using the personal data, and dividing them into two spaces would allow them to make use of the personal space and the this workspace separately. A little more about how exactly this protects the horizon protection of the product, that how exactly it functions, what exactly we have to offer, how exactly this protection works on the devices when you, I would say, deploy it on a specific endpoint. Any endpoint that you're going to enroll within Windows, we have more than, I would say, 9 methods to enroll it into UEM, Workspace on Airlift. If you're actually using an AD, I would say a local AD, wherein the devices would just be onboarded. You have local AD groups. You want them to sync the directory groups so that the users would just appear on cloud, and how exactly the SaaS environment or an on-prem environment will consider it. So yeah, this is how it's exactly going to function once it syncs. Intelligence will also come in picture when you sync those devices, or I would say a task that you're going to run, or a report that you would require and will have to share with the technology services or other departments that will be a part of your organization. In seconds, you'll be able to find it in your, I would say, in your intelligence portal and would just be able to share it across. Doesn't matter how many devices would it be, but the report would just take seconds to share it over. Once you have it, you'll be able to read the data, what the platform is, the supporting platform, what exactly is the version that the user is using, and the number of users who actually are using the devices. Is it a corporate device? Is it a personal device? Who exactly is allowed to enroll a personal device? You'll be able to differentiate between devices, and this is how it's going to function. A few more use cases about zero trust employee experiences. That means once you enroll a Windows device, if I would consider it, considering the way we enroll it in autopilot, and will allow users once the device comes out of OOBE, out of box experience, Once the device comes out of OOB, what exactly it does, it allows users, I think user intervention would be bare minimum while you enroll those Windows devices, wherein user will not be able to access it until it will be on the screen to join, or I would say if you would like to integrate it with Azure AD, that'll also be possible, or any other technology that you're actually using in environment, but you would like to enroll it in Workspace ONE at the same time, the integration will also take place. Azure AD users, if would like to sign in, there would be a different process to make it happen. If the user would actually connect the device, enroll it into Workspace ONE, comes out of OOB, connects with the network, consider the profile that you actually have for the device, waiting to be considered. Users enter their credential to make use of the device, not just to make use of it, but to register it if it's integrated with Azure. At that point in time, the device gets enrolled, it considers or joins the Azure, and that's how it comes out of the phase. And you'll be able to see how exactly the device functions and what exactly it does when it comes out of OOB, and what configurations would be there, the enrollment status page that you'll be able to see if there's any failure, if there are any apps that you're going to deploy, how much time is it going to take, the white glove tool functionality that will also be available that allows us to make use of these applications that reaches the particular device that you're going to enroll. We also can enroll in bulk. And when I talk about bulk, I also want to talk about APIs, application programming infrastructure, that's also being allowed if you want to do some bulk activities. I would say bulk wipe, bulk provisioning. The API query also allows you to make it happen. We make use of Postman or API Explorer that's being offered by VMware that every admin will have access to once he has UEM. So what it actually allows is that we can make use of it. We can actually allow users to make use of API Explorer, wherein they'll be able to run commands in bulk, take actions against devices anytime, whenever they would like to, and it just takes place in seconds. To be honest, we can delete 5,000 devices in seconds. If we have UDID, we create I would say, an Excel of number of devices, we place it in function, we add the filters, we add it there. Once we run that query, the API would just be considered, the device would just go off and would just be removed from UEM if that is the case, or that's exactly what we want to do. So everything that we're going to perform within UEM would just take seconds. The technology that works faster than we thought, how exactly it's going to take place, how exactly it's going to function, what changes will we be able to notice, how exactly will we be able to make a difference when we actually use UEM, intelligence, beat access. Also, a little about access, if I would say. If you've heard about Okta authentication, how exactly it functions while a user signs in, it's a kind of identity provider, I would say. There are also third-party identity providers which would also be in picture, wherein we can make use of it. We can integrate them. We can also allow users to have them and access it for a little while, so that once the user authenticates, Okta will take place and allow the user or will block the user to authenticate until the identity provider will be verified. Uh, not same as multi-factor authentication, but a lot different than multi-factor. Okta authentication actually allows the users to understand what the identity provider is and what the difference of service provider would be. So how exactly it's going to verify that this user who actually has an account in UEM would be allowed to sign in or should be blocked? How many devices will he be able to sign in at the same time? Be it he has enrolled iOS, he has enrolled Android, he has enrolled Windows, Mac OS. So even if he has enrolled multiple devices at the same time, it actually allows the user to access it and leverage them to make use of the same technology, log into different devices at the same time. It varies as per the requirement of the user, or I would say the administrator, that what exactly he wants to do with the user, or what exactly he wants to allow users to get access to, and what time does he or she has access to, or what exactly is the resource that they're about to access, and how exactly will it go. So the difference that would just make the technology, I would say, people crazy about that technology is just to allow them to make use of it when they actually implement it in organization or execute tasks with it. They understand what is the difference and how exactly should it function, and how exactly the platforms and the devices that the users will gonna enroll by the conditions that the administrator will gonna place will how exactly will it function at that point in time. I am just going to present a demo now of how Workspace on UEM functions, what exactly it has to offer, the devices that are going to get enrolled, the resources, the accounts that we're going to create. Also, not just the users that are going to be synced, but there are also basic accounts that we will be able to create within Workspace on UEM, and email functionality that I discussed about SEG a little. Just a sec while I share my screen. Sure, it's visible to you now. All right. So we have options to monitor what exactly are the reports that we are creating. As we discussed, this is just for UEM. Intelligence reports would be different. How exactly will it function when we actually want to find one of the reports that's available? Admin login history, user profiles, user roles that we wanted to configure, number of applications that are being pushed on several devices. How exactly will we be able to find out that what application has reached the device? What application was it, and how many devices does it reach, and the number of devices that it failed to reach, the cost to reach, what exactly would be there that we actually can fetch. We also would be able to download it, the kind of application that we're going to push. Is it public app? Is it going to be an unmanaged device application, a purchased app? If you've heard about iOS enrollment with TEP, that's going to be device enrollment program, it actually allows the devices to have VPP application, that's volume purchasing program, where we will also be able to download a specific report for the number of devices that are actually enrolled into DEP, and helps us understand that what devices, what applications that are actually downloaded, which are being purchased, and how exactly we can retrieve the licenses for that application. If we have removed a few devices from UEM and those were DEP, the number of licenses which we purchased on VPP, this volume purchasing program app, how exactly can we retrieve those licenses? How exactly we can have them back so that we can assign it to a different device. There are device licensing, there are user licensing within the case of volume purchasing program. It actually leverages us to assign it the way we would like to. But nowadays, we follow the method of device licensing, wherein we will be able to retrieve the licenses if in case the device gets removed from UEM. While we configure them, we can download these reports. As it says, any reports exceeding the set. It also has a limitation of 4 GB, and I would say above it, it will not be able to download it, or it would reject it, or will not be able to see the data anyway. So I don't have an application right now. It would just be for the demo. Other than that, I would say the device events would also be seen here, and we'll be able to see what exactly is happening. This device, how many times, what 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 push have we done, or what application has reached, what service is actually communicating with this device. If it's an Android, how exactly we communicate with the service of FCM, that's firewall-based cloud management that helps. It's a Google-based service that helps us communicate with the device. How exactly should it function at the same time? So the number of devices, the features that we get to see while we access one of the devices within the console is that we can remove it, we can bulk remove, we also can access a specific device to fetch the last sync, when exactly was it enrolled, how many minutes that this device hasn't synced, the policies that we're going to employ, the configurations that we also can, as I talked about compliance, this is the right time, I would say, to check if there's a compliance policy in picture. It actually checks when was the device in compliance. It keeps on checking on the device regularly if it still is compliant or is it non-compliant now, so that it could actually push the grace period for the device to be in grace for 30 days, which is actually by default. Users can actually exceed it if the user will not follow the compliance for the device that he has enrolled. They'll be allowed to block the device, or I would say they are allowed to will not allow the users to access them, and it would actually be blocked. The workflows of how exactly the device should function, the profile that we actually push on one of the device, be it's a BitLocker profile, wherein that particular, if I would consider a Windows device and a BitLocker profile would be pushed, this actually is like a bank for the device, wherein without this BitLocker, once the BitLocker actually gets deployed and it encrypts, the TPM is actually a kind of a bank, wherein every time the user is going to access the device, the data until it's encrypted, everything that you're going to store would be encrypted, and many more. Other than that, we also can push update rings on Windows devices. There are services, annual service channel. There are multiple channels that we can use to push the updates on the device. If there's a feature update, there's a version update that's available for the device, we can push it. We can make use of it. We can allow the users to experience it once. They'll just be able to see I would say the front end, the back end would just be handled by the administrator. While he pushes it, he can schedule a particular time while it's off hours for business or the kind of technology that they're dealing with. If the devices would be turned on in the morning and are turned off at night, or if we keep them on 24 by 7, and we would like to push an update, it can be scheduled for 3 a.m. as well, wherein the number of devices which are scheduled to be updated will consider a new update that would actually be available. So we push those updates at a particular, I would say, set of time, or any time that we would like the update to be delivered on the device, we are good to do that. And we also can look into it. Baselines, it'll be mostly for Windows. We can create them, we can configure them on the device. The sensors, that would also be for the device automation, where we can set them up, where we can look into it, what exactly is happening. If any script that you've configured, a custom script or a script which is available, we also can make that happen. That would actually be available. We can push them, and you just can be able to see if the script has reached the device or not. And this is the section where we'll find it, and we just can export it in CSV to look into it, or XLSS. Other than that, the applications that have reached the device, the status where it says that yes, it's installed. If it's not, what's the status? Where is it stuck? We also can run a query to make that happen. More actions of query to device information, the security information, the certificates that are being pushed to the device, the health attestation, the sensors. So it actually tells us a little more than it should about how exactly a device functions, and also about the remote management of how exactly we can take it. If we download Workspace on Assist application on any of the device, it will gonna help us see the screen. We can share it. There are two modes that actually allows us to access it. That's gonna be attended, unattended mode, and attended mode. How exactly it's going to function on devices once we take access. If it's going to be attended mode, it'll allow us to get access to the device. If it's unattended, then we would just be able to see the device, but we'll not be able to access it, or we cannot request the control from the device, because that's exactly how it is meant to be. So it depends on the administrator what functions he would like to enable or she would like to enable and whatnot. Other than that, a little bit about resources, the web links that we can actually push. More about the SaaS applications, I would say, software as a service applications. That'll also be visible in the Workspace ONE catalog. If we would like them to be visible, they will be, wherein we can monitor them for a little while. We can see how exactly they're getting pushed on devices, and how exactly are they working, what changes are being configured on that particular device, what changes are we able to monitor to that set of device. Once we push an application, how exactly it behaves. When the application gets downloaded or reaches a platform, I would say on iOS, it communicates with DS, it communicates with APNS, it communicates on multiple ports. How exactly it's going to reach, it communicates with DS, it also checks with the database if there's something in for the device. The DS responds to the device that yes, this is the application. The three-way it's actually about console database and the device services server. So how exactly it communicates? Let's suppose if you're going to push something on the console, it is gonna go through. If the command would be shoot will be sent from the console, it'll gonna reach the device through the communication that's gonna happen on APNS port. Once the APNS port communicates with the device, it tells the device that there's something in or an application is about to reach. The same time the device tries to reach out to the device services server to communicate and help them know if there's something available for the device under the console, or I would say an application which is available. The device services server then reaches out to the database that if there's something in for that. Now, once the console actually allows an application to reach the device, it also updates the database that yes, this application is actually getting prepared and would be available on this particular device with this device ID and this user ID that this device is configured with. At the same time, once the database gets updated, it actually lets the device services server know that yes, this application is available for you, and it reports back to the device that yes, this is the application that needs to be downloaded. Once it connects, it'll be able to download the application, uh, and it does take time. It's not that we shoot just one application, but if we're going to download 5,000 applications on 5,000 devices, or I would say just one application on 5,000 devices, one of the service log that we can find is bulk processing, where we would be able to see that how exactly this application is getting pushed. So it could take time to get pushed, not to get pushed, but to get delivered on a specific set of devices that you're going to access. And this is how exactly it should function while we access them, and allow the device to access it, and would just be able to configure it and log into it once it reaches the device. A little about profiles, what exactly we have in here. Also, a certificate profile could be there that we want the device to fetch, or a VPN profile that we're going to download. UAG has a lot of functionality with VPN. Any application that we are downloading, a VPN profile we push so that the tunnel can whitelist and blacklist this tunnel profile that we're going to push with the application that we are going to access will allow the users to access them, and the traffic would actually be flown in the direction that will be allowed by UAG. UAG also has multiple functions, like there are two different modes that allows us to be accessed. That's basic and cascade, wherein in the cascade mode there'll be two UAG appliances that will be in picture. One would be in the I would say an internal, and the other would actually be placed in DMZ zone, wherein the communication would be different, how exactly it functions when we allow them to work, how exactly it works with the endpoint gateway, and also the endpoint server, and the front end also has a different endpoint, and the back end also have a different endpoint server that it's going to access, and it's going to communicate it's going to pass through from the DMZ, and finally it allows the resource to be accessed once it reaches the internal UAG that's being kept, and allows the specific set of devices to access the resources that they are trying to access yet. So this is how it'll gonna function. Device updates, I talked about it a little. These are not feature updates, but the quality updates that the device needs after every 3 months, I would say. The defer period. The reason why we actually deploy this device update rings on the devices, not to update them, but to defer the updates. As if an admin is not sure about the particular feature update, or I would say this quality update that's actually available in market, If that update doesn't need to be on the device, and if you do not want to push it right now, you try to defer it or delay it. If we delay it for a little while, it gets pushed on the device after the date we have set up. The maximum days I think we can allow to defer it is for 365, or I would say 1.5. Yes, that's exactly how we can defer the update so that it won't reach the device until we'll be sure the beta version would be out. It has been tested, so the number of devices that the users are actually working will not be impacted in any way. That's exactly why we push this update, we defer it, we delay it for some time. Once it's actually confirmed that the update is reliable, we actually can push it on the device and we can make use of it as long as we would like to. A little about Workspace ONE sensors, how exactly it functions. So OS version sensors is something we can install. How exactly will it be delivered on a Mac OS? I can mark it, I can assign it. It'll get delivered on multiple devices. How exactly it's going to fetch the information related to Workspace ONE, about the platform that it's going to be get delivered, the bash script that's going to reach the device, what information would be there, how exactly will it going to work, what's the back end of every application, or I would say a sensor which is reaching the device would just be as same as an application. If you're going to push, I would say this if we assign it to 100 devices, I suppose the same bulk processing logs would be checked of how exactly will it be pushed, how will it be taken care of, when will it reach the device that we have or the platform that we're going to access. A little about accounts, the number of users that we have in picture. All right, let's suppose if I create one, which I do not have the authority to right now. So I'll go to a different level. Here we go. So let's suppose this is one of the users that's already created. The door is locked. So I just can mark it and I can see if I add a device. All right. So it'll just be simple about the list of number of users that are already created within this demo environment. How exactly it's going to function. Is it a staging user? Is it a basic user? The reason why we use multi-staging and just a single staging user within an environment is just to help stage the devices wherein it get configures after it goes through the staging level. So every device, or I would say a set of devices that we would like to stage, we allow a staging user to enroll them into Workspace ONE. After it goes through the staging process, it allows the device to enroll, the user enter his or her credentials after that staging. So let's suppose if we want to do that zero trust and we just wanted to enroll a device until it reaches the user, we would just send out a device to the user from one of the locations where the office is located. If we're going to send out and we want that device to be enrolled, we make use of staging accounts so that the device would get enrolled, would be sent out to the user. He can make use of his credentials to log into that specific platform. And once he logs into that device, it would actually allow the user to make use of it the way he wants to. That's how it is. And a little about user groups as well. So yeah. We also can configure some of the roles, I would say. We can configure custom roles wherein a user can actually be device admin, will not be a complete administrator, but actually have set of rules that we can allow the user to access to block them from accessing this set of information or this particular feature. User groups. Some user groups can actually be from directory, as I said. Here they are. We can create custom groups as well. We can create directory groups as well, which are being synced from the local AD. If we have in picture how many local directory users or groups that are going to be there, what information is going to be there, the number of users that we have in picture, how exactly are they working. We also can sync it. We also can check when was the last time it was synced from this directory, the OU names. that are actually required at the time of enrolling the devices in hybrid environments, wherein we push the distinguish OU name, or we configure the distinguish OU name so that the device would be added to a specific OU if we have an on-prem environment and we have a local AD. If we configure a set of OU for a specific device, be it it's, I would say Windows, and we want that device to come under a specific OU, that's organizational unit, we configure those devices, we add them under, we understand how exactly will it reach the device. That exactly happens with a distinguished OU name for that particular device. A little about admin groups. They're as same as user groups, but a little different. We do not have a lot of leverage on admin groups yet, but it'll soon be available for them. Content, as I talked about, it's another feature for UAG. It's a content gateway that we make use of. The port that it functions is 10443. How exactly it get configured, the repositories that we can create within, how exactly it allows the user to access that particular content that admin has allowed the user to access. How exactly will it function, and what change will it make, and how exactly can we access that content that's available, or I would say organization has made available for the set of users who should be able to access it, and how exactly should it function. So these are a few admin groups, I would say, that have been created. I'll click on the content to load it. Here we go. So in total there are 22 files for now. This is the list view of the number of files. We can restrict them, we can allow them. We also can access them if being a user, if it's listed under my repository, and if they'll allow me to, once I sign in with a content application that's Workspace ONE content, this application will allow me to access the repositories where the content would be stored. I'll be able to access it. Also about the corporate file servers, this feature is disabled for now in this test. Here the repositories that I was talking about: corporate file share, Office 365 SharePoints, wherein if there's any SharePoint file that I would like to access that's of Office, I can look into it, I can see what exactly is happening, how will it function, what will it allow, what it won't allow to access, how will it work. The templates, yeah, we can also create them. And here we go about the secure email gateway. Yet it's not active in this, but a little about MEM. That's also a module in Workspace on UEM, that how exactly it functions, allows the users to access them and leverage the access to UEM. A little about the secure email gateway, of how exactly it contacts the exchange, if the exchange server is also linked, how exactly is it working, what exactly is it allowing, how exactly the user receiving the emails on an application called VMware Workspace ONE Boxer, which is exclusively a product of Workspace VMware, wherein application would allow you to see number of emails and whatnot. Now a little about this, I would change the role here. Intelligence. So here it'll actually help me access the intelligence portal. It's actually segregated, as I said. This is what intelligence is, wherein we can opt in with different intelligence features. If you want to fetch a report for UAG, we can configure it here. We can add a connector, and it will also help us see what's exactly happening within UAG. It'll help us fetch a report after every time we're going to configure it for. What timeline we're going to set, it's all going to be us. How exactly we're going to put it there, what changes can we add, what info can we service. This will all going to be in picture. This is just a test account of knowing the workflows and the reports that we can fetch out, the app reports that we can fetch, the devices reports that we can fetch. We actually have to configure it all. It takes a little bit time just to let you know how exactly will it function, how exactly will it gonna do. If I'll start this intelligence feature, I'll look into the dashboard. We go. That's exactly how we configure automation of a particular set of devices. We can configure filters to that particular automation that we're going to set. There are widgets that we can manage. There's more. Just a few is visible here, but just about how we automate things. This is about automating the Windows patches that needs to be delivered on devices on a particular set of date. How exactly are we going to deliver it? This is the data range, the total Windows devices, quick filters. We also can look into devices, Windows OS updates, how many devices it has been reached to, the devices that are yet vulnerable and haven't considered updates, the critical and the security updates that the device requires. So it actually kind of tell everything about the console, that how exactly is it behaving and what needs an attention. It actually helps us look into the future, that yes, this is the time, let's take an action against it. This is the time, let's push an update. Let's push this particular feature to be there, or this update needs to be on the device in next 20 days or 30 days, or what's the timeline that we are left with when the next update needs to be on the device. So whatever we're going to configure in automation, it'll just going to behave the way we want it to as an administrator. Honestly, it has a lot. Also, about the Workspace ONE access, we also can fetch reports about the authentication IDPs. When I say IDPs, these are identity providers, wherein we look into it, what exactly is happening there, what information is being fetched, how exactly is it working, syncing with UEM to fetch the reports of UEM every day to understand how exactly will it work. So yeah, also the Horizon Cloud, as I say, a virtual desktop environment and virtualization of applications within this Horizon Cloud that the user would be able to experience just a set of desktop. You also can access it on, I would say, your Android phones. You also can access it via iOS phones. I myself has experienced it, how exactly it functions when you access it. So this is what Horizon Cloud is, a little about it. And yeah, I think we have covered a little more than we should. This is just about Carbon Black, a product which is available for threat remediation, MTD. That's threat detection. That's about the workflows that we can check here. This actually allows to look into it. And this is how it functions. We also can monitor horizon. Yeah, this is also one of the features wherein we look into the deployments that are taking place. This is also another intelligence feature that we can automate, knowing the horizon monitoring of deployments, location, pools, and pods. That where exactly is it? What exactly will it do? And the experience score, I believe, a lot more. Here I said about UAG. Here we go. This actually can be reset. If there's nothing about 7 days, we can increase it. We can see for 14 days if there's anything. We'll have to configure the connectors with UAG. And once we do that, the intelligence will actually do the automation and help us fetch the automations that we have created. That's what the difference is. There's no automation set for UAG tunnel in this, but we can if we need to. All right, I think we covered it. You almost covered it.
Anshit, I think we have few questions in the chat section. If you would like to take now, or we can also take it later.
All right, I think now it's time we can take it. Uh, Nick, you can move to the next slide. This is what we were about to do. All right, the first question would be, do you have a sample of a report? Is it customizable? Yes, it is. We can customize it. Reports could be different. As I said, we also can set up, uh, we also can automate reports if we would like to. We also can put them in picture wherein we get to know that yes, we once we automate a particular set of tasks, we get a report for UAG, we can fetch a report for SEG, we just can fetch the report for UEM as well. If an application is not functioning, we would like to know for how many devices it has been pushed onto. If there's an update out available for a set of application, let's suppose I'm going to push Workspace ONE Assist on a specific set of devices. It's going to be iOS. Once I push that particular this update on devices, and I wanted to know for how many devices it has been delivered and for how many would it be pending. The best way is to fetch the report and to understand how exactly will it gonna work. So once we fetch it, it'll gonna tell the version of the particular application, what exactly has happened with the application. So we'll be able to see that what was the last response time for that application, when was it pushed, when was the update being pushed, when was it delivered, if it has been delivered, if that answers your question. The next one would be, how many devices can be monitored at the same time if there's any limit? There's no limit, to be honest. Once we create a report, or I would say once we actually set up a configuration or an automation, the number of devices that comes under that criteria, they'll all be monitored. Uh, we just can add more licenses to it. We just have to add or buy the license for that that particular that particular device that we're gonna fetch. I would say it could be iOS, it could be Android, it could be macOS. Once you configure that particular automation so that we can monitor it regularly, we get to know how exactly that device is functioning, what application is not reaching. Let's take an example. Let's suppose UAG is what we are monitoring for now. And we actually are allowing a particular set of applications to function because the tunnel profile has already reached the device. And the application will be named as any application in idea, I would say, let's suppose Google Chrome has a tunnel profile on it, and we are monitoring and we are allowing the device traffic rule and server traffic rules. So whenever we would allow a set of URL to open, if we have put it in the blacklist, it will not allow that set of URL to function on that particular browser that has the tunnel profile. So that means we are monitoring through UAG if that particular, I would say that particular URL is working on that specific set of endpoints or not. So once we fetch that report, all those devices that are being allowed or whitelisted for that particular URL to function, they'll all be allowed to make use of it, and there's no limit. How can we add a security pin to this UEM platform? This actually is a compliance strategy, if I'll talk about the UEM pin, wherein you would actually be allowed to set a pin. If you set a device pin without putting any limit to it or without putting any compliance to it, you're good. If you are actually setting a compliance, you actually go to the compliance settings, you set up a password that the limit should be of 8 digits or it should be alphanumeric, whatever the condition would be. If the device will consider it, that means the device will stay compliant, else it will not. If the device will be non-compliant, there is a grace period which would actually allow the users to access the resources for that set of time that admin allows them to access. Once that time would actually pass, let's suppose 30 days would be allowed, the users would still be able to access the resources, and after 30 days, they'll no longer be able to access it because it does not allow them to, because of the grace period that'll end, and users are not following the compliant method. That, the compliance doesn't get enforced on the device like configuration does. If I'm going to push a BitLocker policy, that will be enforced on my device. If I'll just push a compliance policy, that would just help us check. It'll just go to the device, check if it's following the rule. If it's not, it'll come back and report the console that yes, it's reporting, but this is not following the guidelines which admin has created, and the device will turn non-compliant. and it would actually block the access to that specific user, or I would say set of users who are not following the compliance, if that answers your question. All right. Do we have any more questions? If not, we can move to the next slide. All right. This is just about the offers that we make for Workspace ONE, what exactly it includes, what the bundle has. Information about UEM actually includes the endpoint protection and info of how exactly we can add it. It provides MDM and advanced desktop life cycle management, as it says, that what exactly it does. All these things like UAG, SEG, these are all covered within the UEM bundle, wherein you also can subscribe intelligence if you would like to. You also can look into Horizon Cloud. You also can look into Access if an IDP would be required. Intelligence will help you with automations again and to monitor things, how exactly it functions. And the last one would be Horizon Cloud, wherein a virtual infrastructure, desktop infrastructure would be provided to the user with virtual applications that they can make use of. A little about Carbon Black bundle. That means it'll also be included to that enterprise, endpoint enterprise. There are three sort of differences it makes. It's just about MTD. That's actually the crucial part of Carbon Black protection. MTD is actually about threat defense, how exactly we can pre-plan things before the attack could take place or the attackers could actually get into the data or any information. So most of the organizations would like to, get ahead of attackers, which is why they make use of protection and would like to monitor every task of attack that could take place. So that's exactly the difference between standard, advanced, and enterprise. All right, then I think that's all from our end. If there are any questions, any queries, you all can reach out to us. We'll also send you the recording, as Nadia said, that it'll all be sent out via an email and you'll all have it in your inbox in a little while. All right, guys, thanks a lot for joining in.